full-time job, or it's meant to supplement working full-time on your business, 25 hours a week. And so I really love being able to offer this program. Entrepreneurship is not easy. It is not easy. I was just telling one of my students the other day, like, a lot of times we have these expectations that we're going to start a business and it's going to be massively successful within the first year. But really the truth is that it takes 2 to 3 years to build a successful business. And this means a lot of failing. It means a lot of rejection. It means a lot of humbled moments, because we are forced to have to personally develop ourselves through this process also. And so doing that alone, that's why I find a lot of entrepreneurs quit, because they don't have other fellow entrepreneurs or mentors being like, hey, this is part of the process. Keep going. Don't give up. This is how you can mitigate this, or, how can you shift your perspective about this? Or is that really the truth? Or is this other thing happening? Or, is this really the truth? Or is this a limiting belief that isn't serving you anymore? Right. And so the 6-month program, where I have various age of women, I have young women in their early 20s to women in their 50s from all over Canada that are in this Diamonds Mastermind course. And it's a sisterhood. So we meet every single Monday for 2 hours, and the women get to share, how was their week? What was their weekly wins? What didn't work for them? How can we support them? A lot of the homework it can be really intense, because we're flipping the script on our past and identifying limiting beliefs that are stopping us from moving forward. And so because of this deep work that we're doing within the first 3 months, this support, these Mondays are just super essential and super helpful for all of them. And it's helpful for me. It's a great way that I start my week. And then the Tuesdays is the lesson. And the Tuesdays is usually about 2 hours. It's all online. They get their homework, and then, which is about 10 hours, maybe. Actually, like 5 hours, not 10 hours, like 5 hours homework.
Yeah.
And then we're all part of a chat. Fridays, they put in their 5 weekly wins, because we're trying to, plant those neural pathways. I mean, straight from evolution, from, survival days, we're always looking at, what we have to be, safe from. Like, what do we have? What lion do we have to run from, or whatever it is, right? Saber-toothed tiger. And our brains haven't evolved that much in that way. We're still always looking out for the negative, for the threat, for the thing, right? And so this process is helping to develop the habit of seeing what's actually working for us, because we miss so many things every single day throughout our day that are happening for us, or these amazing things that are happening throughout the day, because we're so focused on what's not working out for us. And so, it's a 6-month program. They leave with newfound confidence, new mindset about what happened in their past, and how they can now utilize it for their purpose, for their businesses, their business's mission, their vision. And they leave with a digital marketing strategy as well as a business plan. I'm in my 2nd cohort right now, and my 3rd cohort will be opening. The registration is open now. It starts in April.
Okay. In the comment section, we'll be posting the link to register to our 2nd cohort.
3rd cohort.
Sorry, 3rd. Yes, just so everybody knows. And so, like, what are some of the like more positive things you've seen from the people that have taken your business coaching? And essentially, they are getting you as a mentor, even though it's not necessarily one-to-one, but you are leading them in that sense.
Yeah, and I do offer one-to-one sessions throughout the week if they're really struggling. The business plan also, because you can get stuck. There's lots of like businessy stuff, and so it's really important, I think, to have those like one-to-ones and offer those throughout the course. What was the question again?
Just like, what are some of the great things you've
Oh,
seen,
right.
like, in terms
Yeah.
of changes for them?
Yeah. So really, like, I see the women stepping so outside of their comfort zone, and it's usually about the time we start the business plans, which is month 5. I really start to see them taking these giant leaps and doing these really big things. In the course, we call them like quantum leaps, but they're doing these things that at the beginning terrified them. And I also noticed that they have newfound clarity, and this new clarity and like aha moment where they're like, oh, okay, so this is what happened for me. This is how I can utilize it for my businesses, branding, my mission, my vision. They're showing up differently. They're showing up differently every single Monday. They start showing up differently during the lessons. They start showing up differently in the chat. And I just love watching them grow so much within this 6-month period. And I'm just really super excited to see what they're going to do after the course. I mean, even just being able to create these business plans with this newfound sense of purpose and like, I can do this attitude during 1 week. So we do money mindset. So you talk about, why maybe us as Indigenous people might struggle with money and associate it with colonization and capitalism and how it's really holding.
You go that deep into it?
Yeah, we talk about that. And then we also, 1 week, we do goal setting. So we do A level, B level, and C level goal setting. So A level goal setting is like the goal setting that you would do every day. So I'm going to drink 5 liters of water today, or whatever it is. You know how to do that. B type goals is like something that you kind of know how to do, and it seems doable to you. So I'm going to book 1 client this month would be a B type goal. A C type goal is something super uncomfortable that you're like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I'm going to book 6 clients this month, right? And I'm going to make $10,000 this month. Super uncomfortable for a lot of people that are just starting out in business, right? But, setting these type of goals and reaching, and this is what we were talking about earlier, about that reach, right? How can we develop the habit of constantly raising the bar for ourselves? We might not get there right away. It might still take, a bit, but even just the habit of doing that, even just the mental exercise of setting this C-type uncomfortable goal makes so much difference in our lives.
It does. I just had a conversation with my son. So sometimes in our community, if you make it to his age, 17, you don't have a criminal records. You don't have any addictions. You're still in high school. All those things. It's like, you're winning, which is true. He is winning. But what I explained to him, we have to raise the bar. Mm-hmm. So getting here, that's good. We're happy that we're here. but like we need to think further. We need to start thinking like, okay, I want to be an engineer. I want to not only buy a house, but I want to have a house and a vacation home. You know what I mean? Really starting to expand on where we can get to. And it's just, it's great that we get to a certain place, but I think it's important that we really push the youth, and through programs such as yourself, like helping people to just like break free of like, the common stereotypes like, yeah, I'm alive, I'm sober, I'm healthy, that's good enough.
Yeah.
Really skyrocketing past that.
Yeah.
Like being MPs and taking the political route, just really going above and beyond.
Yeah. And it's not about, like I'm not good enough as I am. And that's part of what we go through in our course is like, this is not what it's about. It's about embracing those parts of yourself too that you don't feel good about. It's about facing those parts of yourself that might have stemmed from trauma or the mistakes that we made as a result of trauma, but really being able to face those things, feel the feelings, and accept that version of yourself, right? Because we didn't have people growing up that accepted those versions of ourselves. They were suppressed. So we have to accept those versions of ourselves fully. And once we can do that, like there's literally no bounds in how we see ourselves because we're fully embracing who we are and everything that we've gone through and the dark mistakes that we've made, which we all have.
Yes. I often call that you have to be willing to look in the mirror and not only see the good sides of yourself, look at some of the ugliness. It's all part of that growing and being able to self-develop and things like that.
And see beauty in the ugliness, right? Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Like I really like the way your program is laid out. So in your experience, what unique strengths do you think young Indigenous entrepreneurs bring to the business landscape? And how can these strengths be leveraged for them?
So I really like this question because it brought me back to myself doing my MBA. And the reason why it brought me back to that is because when I'm just thinking. So when I started my MBA, I feel like COVID had just ended. Maybe, yeah. Because I did my business degree, and then I wasn't even in school, like out of school for that long before I automatically registered for my MBA because my businesses quite weren't where I wanted them to be. And I just I felt safe doing school. That's the only reason why I went and did my MBA. My nation, Samson, thankfully, they paid for it, right? So it was comfortable for me. And when I did my business degree, I took digital marketing and it was so crappy. We did social media marketing and it was just blogging. There was no detail. There was nothing about Facebook, Instagram. There was nothing. It was just all blogging. And this was I don't know, 20, not that long ago. And then, COVID, I feel really just changed everything, right? Everything was online, everything just shifted in terms of information and the way that we do business and the way that we do school and the way that we interact with each other. And so when I went and did my MBA and I took digital marketing at that level, and because of COVID, they were so in depth in terms of the social media marketing. And I feel like it was because of COVID. I feel like it was because of, this new advanced technological age that we were catapulted into, right? And this is why I'm bringing up that I feel in the youth and, the the amount of expertise and innovation and ideas because of this amazing, some people wouldn't agree, but I absolutely think it's amazing technological world that we're living in. We're going to be able to come up with ideas faster. You're going to be able to be more innovative, more bold. And I just see so many amazing things that are going to be done by our Indigenous, entrepreneurs in the next 10 to 20 years. That's going to make such profound impact on, this $1 billion Indigenous economy that has hardly even been tapped into.
Mm-hmm. It's a big thing. Like, I'm a big proponent for, we should have entrepreneur classes for Indigenous youth, like in grade 12, giving them those types of options.
Yeah.
Like to expand, especially like today's world, you could do a lot of things online, and your business can be located right on the reserve.
Yes.
You get those tax benefits, and also you can still be a part of the community, still be a part of ceremony, and not have to literally move away to the city and be separate from your family.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
should almost need to start expanding.
My vision too, like talking about decolonizing, business spaces, like the more leaders that we can have in business and really taking stands on like, no, we're going to start this meeting with a prayer, or no, we're going to have a conversation before we do this transaction, or no, we're going to, we're going to energetically respect each other in this conversation, like utilizing our culture and finding ways that we can integrate it and shift and really become leaders in this new way of doing business together. That is how I see business evolving, not just in terms of Indigenous business, but all kind of business. That's the kind of impact that we could make through our cultural teachings and understandings and decolonizing.
Yeah, it's a big task, but I'm glad that there's people such as yourself and your business. Now, this next question ties right into your business, Indigenous projects and events. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah.
Yes, because earlier we had a discussion on, how you're providing like larger companies like some greater understanding, and also acting as like a mediator to help them to understand how do we enter these spaces, right? So,
Yeah.
For me, like, how do you feel the community and organizations can collaborate with young entrepreneurs and like really have like a supportive ecosystem for them to thrive?
Well, can you repeat the question?
How can communities and organizations collaborate to create supportive ecosystems for young entrepreneurs?
I really feel like allowing Indigenous business owners and young business entrepreneurs to lead within whichever industry it is that they're trying to enter is one of the biggest ways that companies, non-Indigenous companies, can help support young Indigenous youth entrepreneurs. So, in terms of Indigenous projects and events, we plan these, we do strategic event planning that specializes in Indigenous experiences. And, these competing companies that are Indigenous owned, and the majority of their staff are non-Indigenous, but they are Indigenous owned. They're not fully Indigenous run and operated. And not only this, but I see other like companies where they have event planners and they're planning round dances, they're planning these Indigenous focused events, and they're also not Indigenous. And And, you know, I had this conversation earlier today, like if non-Indigenous companies who are wanting to participate in truth and reconciliation aren't allowing Indigenous entrepreneurs to lead in these areas that we should be like able to, like planning our own Indigenous events, like round dances and these other things, like that is our expertise. That
Yes.
is where we can like stand strong in and lead, you know, even environmental companies, technology, like all of these areas, companies need to be able to allow these Indigenous entrepreneurs to lead.
Yeah. So would you say like, you know, some of these larger companies, they need more visibly First Nation staff that can essentially like receive these young people that are coming into these companies. You know, so it's more of a supportive and familiar ecosystem.
I feel like that could potentially help, but I really feel like it's about really questioning our own individual thinking. Like most people, when you talk about what an unconscious bias is, they really have no idea what that actually means. Like they've heard the term, but they have not actually ever sat down and have been like, what does that mean? And you know, on the other spectrum, like I spoke at a conference in the fall of last year,
Yeah.
and it was alongside a counselor of a city of Edmonton counselor, white man, and he said, you know, I thought of myself as being an ally, and so this assumption that he had allowed him to say and do things unconsciously and were hurtful to like a fellow Indigenous woman counselor. And this Indigenous woman counselor, you know, in a well-mannered way, confronted him about it. And he's telling this story, and he said, you know, I really felt defensive. Like that was my automatic reaction. Like I'm not saying that it's okay, and I'm not saying it's an excuse. Like I'm a white guy, you know, lived and raised with white guys, went to college with a whole bunch of white guys. Like I'm in no way educated or have the right to speak here in any capacity.
Yeah.
But if we're not having the conversation about this defensiveness that I felt and that you're gonna run into having these conversations about unconscious biases, then we can't solve that problem. Like bringing to awareness that yes, these defensiveness do come from non-Indigenous people when we're talking about unconscious biases, and we're asking people to question their thinking and whether or not they might have racist or stereotypical beliefs about Indigenous people.
Yes.
And so these unconscious biases might stop a company from allowing an Indigenous entrepreneur to lead, right? This is what's stopping them. So I feel like the only way that we can really try to mitigate that is by talking more about these conversations and being like, are you sure that you're not being biased here? Are you sure, you know, you're not a bad person? You know, that's the biggest thing. You're not a bad person. You know, nobody likes to be told you're racist. You know, nobody wants to believe that they're racist and stereotypical. But when you grow up with, you know, in the world that we grew up with, in where the reconciliation wasn't a thing, you never saw Indigenous people in movies unless it was the good Indian or the bad Indian, right? Of course, when you grow up with this mentality and these truths about the children being found in the graves, like a whole history was hidden. And, you know, again, I believe that Indigenous people were just drunken, losers, right? That was how I was raised in a non-Indigenous home to believe about my own people.
Yeah.
And so me thinking that there's like a whole world, a society that has these unconscious bias and thoughts and beliefs about us. And yeah, like how can we get these partners, these organizations, these senior executives to question their thinking around it and their own thoughts and assumptions?
So essentially, could any of these larger corporations, could they reach out to your company to do like fireside chats, presentations to help them break free of some of those unconscious bias that you speak of?
Yes. I do find a lot of companies that do already have stronger reconciliation strategies. They are looking for those next level of understandings. So alongside potentially speaking or facilitating, for me, it was the experiences that helped me shift my perspective. It was the actual doing. It was, the feeling and the doing, right? And so I feel like when we can like have this experience and have this feeling, it literally shifts our neural pathways to create new forms of patterns of thought and belief systems. And that's what happened for me. And so if we can connect, these business leaders, these companies to these Indigenous experiences in a good way,
Yes.
in a good way, imagine, what our culture can teach them about not just who we are as Indigenous people, but who they are and their views of the world. And so that's what we do.
I like that. So do you have a website for this business?
Yes, the website is www.indigenousprojectevents.com.
Okay, great. We'll also post that in the comments. So any of you listening, if you want to go check it out, that'd be great. So this is an important one, especially for us being Indigenous. So what role does cultural identity play in shaping the entrepreneurial journey for Indigenous youth? And what role did it play for you?
Yeah, it did. Running a successful business, I had mentioned, means
Late nights.
late nights. It means a lot of personal development though too, right? Like lots of growth that we have to do on ourselves. There's so many humbling experiences. There's so many rejections. There's so many ways in which we need to develop a growth mindset to surpass a lot of these things that we all experience as entrepreneurs. And so if there's pieces that are missing within yourself, like culture or family, which some of these are out of our control, but if you have family, then like supports, community, culture for me filled one of these gaps. It filled, this piece of me that was missing, and it created so much more self-awareness that I was able to implement in my business through the decisions that I make, because I'm showing up more confidently through, the directions that I'm going in terms of I want to decolonize my business and I want to stand strong in that. It just created so much, it made it such a more fulfilling and profound experience for me. And I believe that it can do that for every single Indigenous entrepreneur. Yeah.
I think you know, seeing Indigenous entrepreneurs that are passionate, I think it's really inspiring. Um, and I like to see, it gives me hope, because when I was growing up, I didn't see people like you. And if there was people like you, they usually never came to visit us. I was never in a space to see my people being successful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so it's a sign that things are changing.
Yeah.
And that having that opportunity to be culturally aware and to imagine, if we really think about it, who would have thought, like, say 20 years ago? I'm not sure how old you are, but I'm 43, so
I'm 37.
okay. But about, say, like, yeah, 20 years ago, to
Yeah.
imagine that, like, during online meetings and in big places like oil and gas places, like, people would be smudging. That's where they would start a meeting.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like it's such a big change, right? But we've got so much further to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's
One
see.
day at a time.
Yes, for sure. That's just like sobriety, right? That's what they always say. Like, as long as you get through tomorrow, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
So I really like that sentiment. Um, can you share any success stories of young entrepreneurs that you've worked with, and what were the key factors that contributed to their success?
Actually, yeah. Okay. So there's some young entrepreneurs, and I mean, like, what young, like, what is young? um,
They say it goes up to 30 now.
okay. So yeah, I feel like there's quite a few Indigenous entrepreneurs that I've come across, and a lot of them came from really strong Indigenous families. A lot of them, those Indigenous strong families, like, they had success, like they had somebody who showed them the way, right? And unfortunately, that's not the case for so many Indigenous youth. Like, it wasn't the case for me, and it wasn't the case for you. We had to seek out mentors and people to show us the way. It wasn't our mother or our cookums or our aunties, right? We were raised in foster care.
Yeah.
Or if you weren't raised in foster care, maybe the majority of your family struggles with addiction. So how do you reach out and find the mentors and ask for help, and get the confidence to just take that really scary step of reaching out and messaging somebody to help? And my only suggestion is just to do it, right? To, like, get past that terror barrier. You never know what's going to happen, and maybe somebody says no. But in the Diamonds Mastermind, I teach that no is actually the acronym for next opportunity. You might get 5 no's, but the 2 yeses that are coming your way are going to be huge.
I like that. So we know that Diamond Masterminds is a resource, but what other kind of programs do you recommend for Indigenous individuals looking to start, getting into the world of entrepreneurship?
So I can only speak from my experience. If you do have the opportunity to go to school, if your nation pays for your schooling, I highly recommend doing something in terms of business. It's so it's so beneficial. It doesn't really matter what industry you're in. Like you could be a chef and already have like a chef red seal, still go back and get a business diploma or a business degree. And it's just so multi-dimensional. The opportunity to be able to start your own business and learn all different aspects of, you know, running the different functions, building and creating and managing, you know, from project management to digital marketing strategies to human resources to program development. Like there's so much that I learned that I wouldn't have really been able to learn anywhere else, but through my business degree.
One of the first steps then is definitely education.
Yeah.
You know, and so what is the youngest person that you'd be willing to take into your program?
Actually, so my daughter is joining my April cohort, and she's 17. She's going to be 18.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So this is her last semester of her high school diploma, and she only has like one course left. So she's going to be doing it simultaneously while she's finishing her high school diploma, and super excited about that. So she'll be my youngest person to join. So yeah, like really anybody who's aspiring, they have a business idea, and they're looking to really let go of, you know, the past so that they can really step into this amazing future that's available to each and every one of us.
You must be so excited.
I am, yeah.
You know, your daughter's going to join you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that's a great stepping stone for her, especially right out of high school.
Yeah.
You know, and then of course to work with her mom. That's great. My son will be, I'm going to start teaching him construction.
Yeah.
He wants to take 1 year off. What do they call it? Gap year?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he'll start going to university. So
yeah,
I'm going to put him to work. So it'll be good.
Those gap years. I always question those gap years. What are you really doing, wanting to do here?
I know. I always thought it was like, wasn't the greatest thing, but a lot of people that just go straight through,
Mm-hmm.
they say like they feel like they missed out on something, not having that 1 year to travel or have fun.
Honestly, though, I always go back to whenever I have those thoughts that like I really like I was AWOLing off the group home and hitchhiking and like you know, like she's way better off than I ever was, and so you know, so many things can just be let go of.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion, what is the long-term impact of empowering young Indigenous entrepreneurs in their communities and in the broader society as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really, I had mentioned it earlier when I had said that this world is advancing so fast, technologically and innovatively, in so many different industries. Like ChatGPT has been so helpful for me in my daily administrative processes for my businesses.
Yeah.
In terms of like program creation and like I think like the more and I highly encourage the use of, you know, AI technology in my Diamonds Mastermind. And that's the other thing that's helping the women, you know, is they're able to get, you know, put their incomplete thoughts and words in ChatGPT and get this fully formed idea and system or process or email, and it's giving them confidence, right? And so it's just going to get even more easier for us entrepreneurs, and these fresh young minds that have, you know, all of these different amazing perspectives because of social media, because of, you know, these things that lots of people today may think are negative. Like, I think it's amazing and positive because they are becoming more open-minded. They are thinking thoughts that we didn't think growing up, and how much this is going to help business in the world going forward.
Okay, so this part of the podcast, it's always important that we have some more authentic questions. So don't worry, it won't be anything crazy like that.
I'm okay with anything.
Okay. So, when we're young people, we often like imagine the superhero we wanted in our life. Someone, whether that be a teacher, a parent, an auntie and uncle, to come into our lives and like tell us that great advice that we really, really needed at that low point in our life, especially when we're young teens, like, you know what I mean? It can be rough breaking free of the system and, learning about yourself, like, and you're still technically a ward of the government. You're the government's property, and like what that feels like. And so, I want to ask you, like, what would you tell that young 17-year-old you to really like help her in her deepest, darkest moment to be like, okay, I can do this?
Because I feel so deeply that all of our experiences shape us to sometimes to do these really amazing things, even those really hard experiences, I would tell her, because I really don't regret, knowing what I know now, I really don't regret, anything and any of the experiences. And, I don't regret the addiction. I don't regret some of the people that, like, I wish it didn't happen that, people were hurt by me. Right. Mm-hmm. But to be able to release that shame, what I would tell her is that, one day you're going to understand why this had to happen this way. And it's going to make so much sense to you. And one day you're going to be so happy, and you're going to help change so many lives because of everything that you're experiencing right now. That's what I would tell her. And that's what I would want, like, every youth that's experiencing that, those times, those dark times, to know.
Mm-hmm. There's always another day, and you don't know what the future holds, right?
Yeah.
So, I really got deep into my emotion with that question, actually.
I resonated so much, with that, because as you were saying that, I'm like thinking about, those plastic garbage bags that, that you have to put all your clothes in, because your social worker shows up and is like, you don't know why, but you have to move in like within 1 hour. So,
my thing was I would put food in my suitcase, because I didn't know if the next foster home or wherever I was going, if they had food there. So I'll be like, oh, well, I'll just pack this away in case tomorrow I'm not at this house.
Yeah.
So, please tell the people how they can follow you, also research your business, and really learn about what you offer.
So for Indigenous projects and events, I'm on, that company is on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Through those social medias, and also, through the social medias, I do post a lot about our clients' events, updates on those. And part of the Indigenous projects events is that we have an Indigenous Speakers Bureau. So if you're a speaker, please reach out to us. We are looking for more speakers. There's lots of companies that are looking for a diverse mix of Indigenous speakers, diversity, equity, and inclusion speakers, truth and reconciliation speakers. Please join our Speakers Bureau. We also have an Indigenous arts and decor rental program. So we're looking for Indigenous arts and crafters who have art that they think would make great centerpieces, that would make great staging decor, so that our clients can rent their items, potentially purchase them, or other organizations that are planning Indigenous events can rent your stuff through our website. It's just another revenue source for Indigenous artists, and just another opportunity for them to be able to showcase their art. And then for Diamonds Mastermind, I don't have a website for that. Well, I do have one, but it's do not check it out. I need to get it redone. And but I post on my Facebook, on my Instagram, and on my personal LinkedIn. So it's Natasha Delaney on Facebook, Natasha Delaney on LinkedIn, and then the Natasha Delaney on Instagram.
Okay, that's great. And to all chief and council out there, it's important that we support these kinds of programs and initiatives. It's not always about, the standard thing that we've been doing for 20 years. We've got to start thinking outside the box and working with people like Natasha.
People do that all the time.
I'm glad I wasn't the first one. No, it's important that we support entrepreneurs that are really out there trying to modernize things for us and helping us to decolonize spaces. So
and
I want to
heal.
thank you. Yes, and heal. Yeah. And that's all a part of it, like having the courage to be in those rooms. Because one of my aunts, she worked in oil and gas for a long time. In those rooms, it was really racist. She had to put up with a lot of things. But she worked hard and she was very successful. But like the things she had to face, right? So
yeah, I call those women the real OGs. They're like in their 50s and 60s, and they had to hustle. And there's like a handful of them, right? And they had to hustle when racism was alive and thriving, and they succeeded. And so, yeah, I call those women, those Indigenous women, the real OGs.
Sure, yeah. Well, once again, thank you for joining us. I hope that on your Facebook page, will you be posting like the different events that you're hosting and things like that?
Yeah, on the Indigenous projects and events, yes. And then in terms of anything with Diamonds Mastermind, it will all be on my personal social medias.
Okay, and then that big event is August 5th?
Yeah, so the Global Indigenous Social Work Conference is August 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th and 15th. If you are in the social work field and you are wanting to present or facilitate, there is a call for abstracts that closes on right now, March 15th, but we might be extending it a month. And you can submit your call for abstract at www.iivsw.com. So it's not just for academia. They're also looking for Indigenous facilitators that can speak on lived experience as well.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.